Hello, friends of Amor por el Voleibol, Love for Volleyball. Today I introduce Lee Feinswog, an American author and journalist known for being the executive producer and host of the television show Sport Monday and Sport 225. He's the editor of volleyballmag.com, and also contributes to Baton Rouge 225 magazine. He's also a water polo player, and as he says in his profile in X, he has not yet learned the age limitations. I had the honor of meeting him personally last year at the International Volleyball Hall of Fame Class of 2023 ceremony in the city of Holyoke, USA, where he's a member of the board of directors, and today have the enormous honor and joy to talking to him. Hello, Lee. How are you?
It's a pleasure to join my friend who we had such a great visit almost 1 year ago when he came to the International Volleyball Hall of Fame festivities. And thank you for having me.
Fantastic. For me, it's a great honor. You're one of the biggest, for me, influences in sport journalism. So for me, it's fantastic to have you today in my channels. And I wanted to start, Lee, with our conversation, asking you that you please tell me how was your beginning in sports, and how you became, or how was it connected to sport journalism?
Well, like a lot of kids, I thought at a young age, of course, I would be a professional athlete one day. Now it's quite obvious that wasn't going to happen, especially when my sports of choice were swimming and water polo. But I majored in journalism in college, and then got into the newspaper business and led a different path covering all sorts of things, mostly during my time in Baton Rouge, the University, Louisiana State University, LSU. I was a basketball writer for a long time.
Okay.
But I got into volleyball coverage in 2011, writing for NCAA.com, and then in 2012 started writing for Volleyball magazine. My late partner Ed Chan was a photographer for the magazine, and we were contributors who crossed paths quite a bit at NCAA events and other things. And in 2016, Ed and I bought the magazine. We eliminated the print and went strictly online, which is volleyballmag.com, and committed to being the daily digital news source for all things volleyball. And we try to keep up on everything there is in the sport around the world, but we're U.S. centric.
Yes.
And we just plug along and cover volleyball, and that's the short version that won't have all of those of you watching just going, "Oh no, please stop."
No, for me, it's very interesting to know, because sometimes, maybe in my case, I played only volleyball at school and the club. I played some handball, for example, at school, but volleyball has always been my sport of my life. So I was very, very interesting to know how a water polo player or swim sport later writes in basketball and later become one of the most important editor and journalist in the volleyball. For me, it was very interesting to know. So that's why I am asking you about this.
Sure. Well, you overrate how important I am, but I appreciate that. But in 1993, while I was at the newspaper in Baton Rouge, I got sent to write a story about a volleyball coach and a very successful program. And that volleyball coach and I will be married 30 years next year.
Wow.
That's how I got into it.
Okay. I understand. Absolutely.
In 2000, I became the club director, and it was called Volleyball Baton Rouge. And I had that club for 20 years. So I was involved in the sport and interested in it. And when the opportunity to start writing about it came about, when I got out of the daily newspaper business and was doing other things, that's what led me to the progression here. I never played volleyball. I have enjoyed it, of course, being married to a very successful coach, and and it's a great sport with a great culture and wonderful people. So it was a no-brainer for me to be involved in it from a writing end, which is what I do. Yes. And now it's grown to where it's all cumbersome every day.
Fantastic. And I wanted to ask you more about volleyball.com, because in this time of digital media, of online magazines, because I'm referring to my story also again, because in my time in the 80s, in the 70s in Chile especially, we didn't have any of magazine writing about volleyball. Sometimes we saw some lines of volleyball in some newspaper, or maybe some guy came with a VHS cassette, and we saw some games of international games.
All right.
So for me, it's very interesting to know, or I'm very wondered to know how is your life doing volleyball.com, because as we know in Chile, United States is so big, and we talked about this last year in Holyoke. How is it possible to make this magazine, to live with being a journalism in volleyball especially, and tell me more, please, about your life as a director of this magazine.
Well, as you know, especially in America, but worldwide, volleyball is, as we say, the phrase is on an up escalator in every possible way. It's growing exponentially. Girls, boys, indoor, beach, USA college women, USA college men, international. Of course, we just had the Olympics, and the USA men took bronze and the USA women took silver.
Yes.
Which were great accomplishments, I think, by both teams. We did not medal on the beach, but beach is a fantastically fast-growing sport, especially on the collegiate level. So the interest is there all the time. To give you a little perspective on page views, for the calendar year 2017, which was the first full year after Ed and I bought the magazine, we had 950,000 page views for volleyball. And we thought, wow, that's really good. But it's nothing compared to like what a soccer website would do, football, yes. For those of you in your country, or rate American football in our country, but it was good. Well, now last year we were 2.5 million.
Wow.
So that's also an indicator of how it grows. But in answer to the question too, I traveled to go see volleyball. I mean, I was in at the Olympics for 3 weeks. NCAA women's indoor season, which is ongoing currently, is our most involved season. I've already been on 2 road trips for that, and seen a lot of the best teams. And then for what I do every day, one of the biggest things I do is simply wake up in the morning, sit here at this computer, and look at as much things about volleyball as I can find, especially around the country, but look at the box scores, the summaries of every match. And I watch a lot of it. Today, we're taping this, of course, on Sunday.
Yes. And
we have a huge NCAA Sunday with big coverage on ESPN and various outlets. So it's a big day to watch volleyball. And it's a good gray, looks like it's going to rain kind of day. So it's even better still. I might fall asleep during some of those matches because it's perfect. But, so it's all the time. It's all the time.
Fantastic. And regarding to this, you told about the leagues, the college league in the United States, the Athletes Unlimited, Love B. You have many new. And maybe again, we are outside of America. We did not know about volleyball in the USA, except from the national teams, the beach volleyball. But for example, last year, Steve Bishop told me that only in the Florida region, you have more than 10,000 college players. It's numbered for us in South America, numbers we can reach, we can understand this. So that's what was my intrigue about your life as a journalism in the United States, and especially in volleyball, because you have so many other sports and sports that are so big, like in NBA, basketball, ice hockey, American football. I don't know. So for me, it's very interesting to know the size of what you're doing and where are you're placed in. So I think it's very amazing for us out South America.
Yeah, there are pockets of places like the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Has more volleyball players on the girls' club level than you can possibly imagine. I don't even know the numbers, but they're staggering.
Yes.
And we, you mentioned, I wanted to say too, that we have 3 professional organizations now in the United States. Athletes Unlimited, which starts next week, is a gathering of about 40 players, very good players.
Yeah.
And they divide into 4 teams each week. And they get points as individuals. So they're not playing for team points, they're playing for individual points. And then each week, the top 4 players draft a new team. And they get points for, say, aces, kills, blocks, different things. but the money's decent, and it supplements the income for a lot of those players, who then in turn stay for. Pro Volleyball Federation will begin its second pro league season in January, and that hasn't had that many foreign players, but it's brought in a few more. But there's a new league starting called League One Volleyball that starts in January as well.
Okay.
And that has all the 9 or 10 of the 13 Olympians from the USA roster are staying to play in Love, and they've got foreign coaches and they've got foreign players. So those are all
female league or both male, female.
League One Volleyball.
Okay, yeah.
So what that means is that you've got star players now not going to their European or Japanese, for example, teams. You know, players like, Lauren Carlini, for example, the setter, is not going back to Turkey. She's staying in Madison. Annie Drews is not going back to Japan. She's also playing there. On and on and on. So there's only there's 3 USA Olympians who are going back. Catherine Plummer and Dana Retke are going to a great team in Turkey. Okay. And Avery Skinner is returning to Chieri in Italy. Everybody else is staying home domestically, and they're going to try to attract the European players. Now, there's certainly enough players to go around. We had a story last week that showed many, many American women are still playing overseas and abroad. But this is a shift in the dynamic at the top level now. Absolutely.
And I have also the opportunity to interview some ex-Peruvian and Brazilian Olympic players who lives in the United States since many years, and they have volleyball academy in Texas and Seattle, and other regions. And they told me about the importance of volleyball, especially in girls at the school level, because there's a way of making a life and being a good player, then going to college, then have a study, a profession. Do you think this is the way volleyball in the United States is developing, especially in women's sport, or maybe it's a phenomenon that you live today with this impressive growth of volleyball?
Well, I think it's just another step in the progression of the tremendous growth. Mm-hmm. Those things you described are becoming a little bit more prevalent, but they've been around. Okay. We have 2 systems here, because there's the girls play in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The boys do too, but their seasons are kind of different, and the boys is much smaller. But the girls play in high school, which is also in the fall, and then in the winter and spring and into the summer we have club. They call it club, and so the better players get to play 10 months a year at a fairly high level. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons. So we have a feeder system that's a little bit different than other countries. Yes. Where we don't have the one place we don't have a feeder system is with boys and men's beach.
Yeah,
which is one of the reasons why we're not battling and representing very well on the men's beach side. It's not like they're bad now, but it's not the same as what we have with the women, because on the women's side, you've now got beach in high school in a lot of places. There's a huge beach club scene, and NCAA beach, which is a huge college season in the spring. And that's where, for example, the 2 American women's pairs, Kelly Cheng and Sarah Hughes, and Taryn Cloth and Kristen Nuss, are all products of the NCAA system.
Okay.
So it's on all fronts. It's not just like what you talked about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand. And last year also when we met and we traveled from the airport to Holyoke, we talked about the changes that in USA volleyball you have, regarding compared to the national rules of volleyball. And we talked about it, and you told me something. It's very interesting. I wanted to ask you again about what do you think. You have some different rules, and especially in maybe in school volleyball. For example, you have you have more levers. I don't know, or some levers can serve. Please tell me about why do you think you have this different rules, and which are they?
Well, the rules that we have allow for more participation. There are some people who think that with the high number of subs that we're allowed, we keep our best outside hitters from becoming the best passers they could be, or some of our middles. We're at the international level where you only have, correct me if I'm wrong, 8 subs total, maybe 6, I don't know. So, but participation wise, it allows more. Yeah, we let liberos serve in high school and college, and like Pro Volleyball Federation went strictly FIVB rules, which didn't allow for that. You know, NCAA women, they're allowed 2 liberos, and not too many teams are doing that. The other new rule this year that's really big is that they've eliminated the double serve set. So on the second ball, now you can't double it on the way over, but you can be as ugly and brutal as you want for the second set. And what that's done maybe is speed up the game a little bit. They don't call too many doubles at the international level anyway. And, you know, in the men's game, you can do everything. As long as you don't take a knife and puncture the ball, you're fine. So those are the biggest things. And you could argue on different sides whether it helps or stunts the development of players in the game here. But at the club level, for the youngest of girls, it allows for the most participation. And, of course, that's a big deal.
Absolutely, and we can see it in the massive participation of not only the players but also the crowd that follow volleyball in the United States. It's absolutely amazing. I wanted to ask you now, Lee, about your history in the Hall of Fame. Please tell me how you became part of the board of directors, and what's your part in the Hall of Fame of volleyball in Holyoke?
Well, they offered to buy me a beer. I think. Our friend George Mulray and the Hall of Fame is doing all it can to expand coverage and awareness and significance of the Hall of Fame. And a few years ago, they reached out and asked if I would be on the board of directors, which I was honored. And I don't know how much I contribute, except for some good humor in our occasional Zoom meetings. But it's allowed us to be more connected and have better coverage. We have a gentleman named Tom Fewer, who lives in Portland, Oregon, or Eugene, Oregon, and is a great guy and a good sports writer. And he writes a lot about the Hall for us. I throw in what I can. And also, you know, the induction ceremonies next month include a new media representation wing. And we're it's a brand new element. And 2 people are going into that, a former public relations director from USA Volleyball, the late Bill Kaufman, and then also my late partner, Ed Chan, who I mentioned earlier. Yes. I'm extremely honored about that. His wife, Julie, a couple of Ed's sisters, a bunch of the nieces and nephews, they're all coming. So it's a really special event. But for anybody here who's watching this, if you ever have the opportunity to come to Holyoke for that induction weekend, it's very, very special, and it's a good time. And if you come next year, you get to hang out with Alfredo and get autographs.
I will do. Absolutely. I promise to be there next year.
Good.
It was a fantastic experience for me, especially because I also have told this George Beale or George Mulry or many friends of mine that the concept of Hall of Fame is a very American concept. True. We don't have this. We have museums, things like that. But
correct me if I'm wrong. I took you to the
NBA museum. It was a fantastic experience. One of my many experiences in the United States. My first time United States, my first time in Hall of Fame. It was
this guy, look, for those of you, this guy, he had one big request, though. He said, I've got to get to a sports bar, which I think we made you wait till you got to New York City to go to a sports bar. But yes. You know, now, I don't know if I've actually told you this, Alfredo. I do not live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana anymore. I live in north of Boston.
Yes.
Town. I'm talking to you from Swampscott, Massachusetts, and it's just a couple hours drive over to Holyoke now. So I look forward to being able to make that drive and not having to get on an airplane. But one of the reasons why we moved here was because both of my families, my children's and their families are here.
Okay.
In a short while, we have to get to a kid's soccer game. So you've got to finish up with me here in the next minute or two. So I don't mind being in trouble with you, but I can't be in trouble with a little kid.
I know. Don't worry. I wanted to ask you about your experience at Olympics, because you were in Paris, and we could see it here in Chile via internet, via streaming. And I wanted to ask you your opinion of what you saw in volleyball in Paris and what you're feeling about LA 2028 will be.
Well, we'll go backwards. I'm a little concerned about what volleyball will be like in Los Angeles from the end that they're going to play in Anaheim. in a wonderful arena where the Anaheim Ducks National Hockey League team plays. So it's first class arena, and thankfully has an elevator that'll take you up to the seats where I'll be sitting in the press box, the media tribune, as they call it. I had to walk 68 steps in Paris every time. It was basically just a big empty building in which they constructed a bleacher situation for 10,000 fans.
Yes.
We won't, in 28, volleyball is going to be very isolated. It's not like if you're going to be hanging out there for volleyball, you're kind of stuck in Anaheim. And there are better places in the world. But if you want to go to Disneyland on your days off. Okay, so the Olympics in Paris, the Parisians did a great job. The country of France did a great job. The volleyball was first class. It was obviously fantastic. There were very few bad teams there. Even the French women who got in only because they were the host in the last pool play match against the USA, which desperately needed to win, took them to 29-27, 29-27, 25-15. It was, when you got into the quarterfinals, you could feel the change because now it's one and done.
Yes.
It was absolutely fantastic. The Italian women were just magnificent. The French men were magnificent. The quality of play was good. You know, until you're up close and personal too with a lot of those athletes, you forget just how big they are. They're huge. The women are huge. The men are huge, and the men play with such extreme violence. You know, the ball gets hit so hard. Every time somebody digs a ball, I'm amazed. It was very, very cool. Very, very cool. I enjoyed it immensely. On the USA side, I think if you had said to anyone, hey, you'll come out of the Olympics with a bronze in men's and a silver in women's, we'll take that, because I wasn't sure that the men could do better than bronze, but I thought they might get bronze. And I wasn't sure the women would even medal. Let's just get a silver. So it was, and the women could have played Italy 10 times there, and they weren't going to beat them because Italy was absolutely phenomenal. Everybody just played fantastic.
Yes. It was
and also, let me finish with that. It was Paris too. It wasn't bad. You know, it was Paris. It was pretty nice.
Yes. Fantastic. And I wanted to ask you, yes, finally, and knowing you have to go to the soccer game, what are your projects or your future for volleyball.com, or do you have more projects on your desk? Please tell me about Lee's future.
Actually, you know, this time of year, I do everything I can just to keep up. You know, there's just the NCAA volleyball is so in depth every day. And on top of that, like we mentioned earlier, Athletes Unlimited starts next week. You know, beach volleyball, the American pro scene, AVP, has a league this year, and that's ongoing. And then we've got the 2 pro leagues starting up in January, which is, you know, and I'm very, very intrigued to see how Love's going to do. And that's LOVB, League One Volleyball.
Yes.
I think it's going to be just a super next 6-8 months of volleyball in America. So the answer to your question is projects. I'm like in quicksand. I'm just trying to survive and advance like we were in a tournament.
Okay, fantastic. And Lee, I want to thank you again for your time. I know you're a very busy journalist and water polo player. And I want to thank you. Send you a big hug from Chile. I hope next year we can see each other in person. So I wish you very, very luck and success for your projects, and hope we keep in touch and be able to speak more and more times about our love that is called volleyball. So
anytime. So high fives to Alfredo, and thank you all for watching this and putting up with me. Hope everyone watching appreciates how much Alfredo cares about volleyball and his devotion to it. So thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Bye-bye, Lee.